I've pushed the CTS hard now for a couple of years, and I've made some modifications that really improve it for the type of work that I do. I'm a general contractor. I've built hundreds of houses. I'm all about construction and working on the site. I also like my woodworking projects. I use all my portable stuff in my shop rather than purchasing a second set of bigger equipment. Hi, I'm Ron Paulk, and this is the Smart Wood Shop. If you'd like to get a detailed set of plans to build yourself a smart bench, a smart station, any of the accessories that work with the whole smart system, or the Smart Wood Shop itself, there's a link in the description of this video down below. The thing that I use just about on every cut is the push stick. It came with a typical long push stick with a little hook on it. The wonderful thing about that push stick, there is a place to put it right on the side of the fence. I used it more than any other because it's there and that's where you need it. I have made tons of push sticks and push block. This one from Hedgehog, I only discovered recently. The way the handle is forward and over the material, the hook on it, it's narrow, it's got a bit of a rubber on it to help grip. Not only is the handle forward, it's off to the fence side as opposed to right over the top or off to the blade side. The negative about this is where you put it. You know, I lay it down here. It's one of those things that's not convenient because it's not where I need it when I'm working. I modified the fence so that I could put this where the old one went. And the modification I did was absolutely nothing. I just took the metal hook or the metal bracket that's already there and it clips in and it stays right where I need it. And that works when I'm using the fence standalone or this sub fence. The fence itself, I made a couple of modifications to. The first one is the flat fence. It flips over in position 1 where it's flush with the table and it holds the material when you do wider rips. I don't need my table saw to do wider rips. I never go over 18 inches, which is a little bit out there. I do not need this support. The other thing this does is it flips over and it has a second level where it's higher and sits on top of the table, and it's a 2-inch offset, and it helps you with narrow rips. That's nice, but I don't need that either, especially since this constantly got in my way. It got in my way for mounting the sub fence, which is way more important to me, and it also got in the way of me putting this right where I wanted it. The next mod is also to the fence, and that is the sub fence. It's taller and longer, and I also added this bit of infeed to it. And then I also have a T-track cut into it, and there I can put feather boards. Mounting the fence does not require a modification to the fence or to the table saw. I simply use a couple of clamps like this, or I can also use the F clamps. The next modification was to add this fast cap zero clearance tape to the insert. I do a lot of narrow ripping, a lot of self edge, a lot of spline. I want to have the cutout as close to the blade as possible. That keeps those narrow rips from possibly falling down inside. Speaking of blades, I've tried a number of different blades. All of them SawStop, so they're of equal quality, a high quality blade. I have the 24 tooth that came on it. I have this 40 combination. I also have a 60 and an 80 with high ATB. I've tried them all for different jobs, different purposes, and I've come to the conclusion for me and the work I do, mostly plywood, but I do a fair amount of hardwoods as well. The 40 tooth combination blade is the go-to blade. I don't need to swap them back and forth. When I put the 60 on, I don't really notice that much an improvement in the cut, but I get blade marks and some burning like this right here. In fact, the reason I'm pointing this out is I knew this, and I knew this was my go-to blade, but I had put the 60 on thinking that I needed it for some cross-cutting and for some maybe better cuts. And I finished that project and I forgot that I had the 60 on, and I've been doing a lot of narrow ripping lately, and I was getting this and I was getting frustrated thinking that it was me and I wasn't feeding it right or something like that. And then I raised the blade up thinking maybe I needed to clean the blade. In fact, I did that. I took it off and I cleaned it up. And I put it back on, and I didn't pay attention that it was a 60 tooth. And even all clean and ready to go, and it's pointy sharp, I still was getting that. So I looked at the blade some more and realized, oh, that's a 60 tooth. So I swapped to the 40, I made a test rip, and I got this absolutely beautiful rip, clean, same plywood, clean top and bottom, no blade marks, smooth. I could put edge banding right on this, even without running it through the joiner. Another ad that was recent is this Hedgehog featherboard. I have other featherboards, I've made featherboards, and this one came across my radar. I got it, and there is just no comparison. It is so simple. It just dials right in to whatever the width of the material is, as opposed to two that you move in and try to get it just right. Just dials in, I put a little pressure on, and then it holds it tight. I mean, it does what the featherboard is supposed to do, and it does it better than any other featherboard I've ever made or purchased. Hedgehog has kind of hit it out of the park and impressed me recently with these. I know they're not new, but they're new to me. This tool here isn't new. I had it long before I got to CTS. This is just a digital angle gauge, so I can zero it out right on the table and then stick it to the blade, and when I do my angle, it shows me right what it is. So I can check to make sure my angle's right. But mostly what I do when I'm ripping 45s or any miter, I like to go just slightly beyond. So not 45, but just a little bit more, because I want the outside to be slightly longer than the inside. When I go for assembly and glue ups, that's really the most important. So I use this whenever I'm setting an angle. I'll go to the scale, but this has a micro adjust on it. So once I get there, I'll have this on and I'll do the micro adjust to get it just a little bit over. Another recent addition that I use a lot is this Sager thin rip guide. This allows me to do my thin rips on the outside of the blade. I've always known that it's better to do thin rips on the outside, because my taper jig that I make all of my shims, it actually rides out here and does all my angle tapers on the outside, and this is perfect. But for ripping my splines and my self edge, my hardwood self edge, I would cut it between the fence and the blade, and you get down to 1/8 of an inch, even a little bit narrower on some of the self edge. I'm doing the hardwood stuff. The splines are a little bit wider, but they're still pretty narrow, and you just get burning. And even with the right blade, it's a challenge to get it and pass it through. Plus, your push stick gets kind of eat up. And I came across a thin rip tool in the last couple of months, and I watched a lot of videos online, and then I went in and looked at, there's so many of them, and I chose this one. It's all aluminum, and it's got the dual bearing, which was the main reason, and then it has separate adjustment for locking it down in the T-track and then moving it for the cut, rather than that being a unified knob. So I chose this one. It's very inexpensive. I've used it a lot, and it's really added. Recently, I've done a lot of narrow ripping, and this has been incredibly handy. Along with that, this is something that's far from being table saw specific, but it does help with setting up the table saw. I use them more on the router table, but still they're nice to have. And that's just setup blocks. I choose millimeter, but this same company and so many different brands out there do them in Imperial as well. So there you have it, the modifications and accessories that I've added to the CTS that make this saw function excellent for me in the smart wood shop. Most of these accessories and modifications would be true for any table saw I have here in the smart wood shop, But now when you're watching me do things and you see me pull out certain things, you'll understand the setup and know what I'm doing. You don't need to do everything. There might be one or two things you can cherry pick from. If you find that helpful, then be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Yeah, right there, right now, right down there. Give it a thumbs up, it won't hurt. And also subscribe. Believe it or not, 90% of the people watching this video are not subscribers. If you do that, it supports the channel, helps us grow, and we can provide more and even deeper dive videos than we've done so far. And also ring that bell so you'll be telling YouTube, hey, when the Smart Woodshop puts a video up, let me know, because I want to take a look at it. If you're interested in finding out more about the CTS, keep an eye on the channel here. I'm working on a deep dive review video. Again, it's been over 2 years. This has been my exclusive saw, and I'm going to give you a deep look at it from the perspective of somebody using it and working with it and making it work for me, rather than diving in on the little specs and adjustments and things. Those are separate videos. I want to dive into the meat of it and do things that you can't do if you just get it off the shelf and you've had it for 2 weeks. It's going to be that kind of insider knowledge of somebody that uses it in my day-to-day work. Mahalo for hanging out with me in the Smart Woodshop.